Okay, stage 1, titled Step On Up. Hard time of 105 seconds, 9-round count, 3 different targets, all at about 675 yards. You would take 3 shots at each target, 1 target per step on the barricade. Okay, the only gear restrictions were 2 bags allowed. So in this stage, I had my mini fortune cookie as my barricade bag, and I had a Armageddon gear puff pillow as my secondary bag. So this was a pretty straightforward stage. No crazy tricks. For the first position, standing, didn't really need the puff pillow. As I moved on to the second and third positions, I was more of in a crouching position, and that's where the puff pillow came into play. So I'm not a big fan of this kind of a barricade because it just always seems so unstable. The fact that the barricade itself can rock back and forth makes it really hard to stabilize the rifle. In the second and third positions, when I could use my puff pillow, stability was a lot better, but I could never get fully stabilized. So that made getting or staying on target a lot harder than it should have been, or that it appears that it should be. But you know, that's just part of PRS. The other part that made this stage pretty difficult was that it was very windy this day. You can't really see it on camera, but it was very windy. And it wasn't fast winds, like the winds were about 10 miles per hour each, but they were swirling, making it very hard to predict what your holds would be. Stage 2, titled Triple Indy, hard time of 105 seconds, 10-round count, 5 targets, 2 shots at each target, starting at 1,100 yards and coming in to about 850 yards. Any gear could be used on this stage except a tripod, which sucks because a tripod would have been really helpful in this stage. It was very hard to get stabilized just using a bag and the barrel. Again, poor stability and swirling winds made it very difficult to connect with targets downrange. I came out with a 1 out of 10 on this stage, which actually wasn't that bad because I think the best score in our group was maybe 3 or 4 shots out of 10 connecting on target. And the person who ended up winning this match was in our group and only got 3 rounds on target. So it was just a really hard stage to complete. It was also really frustrating to shoot this stage because I could see my shots and I was just dancing around the target, just low, just high, just left, just right. I could never seem to get a shot on target except for my very last shot. And the funny thing is, at the very end, I was so over it just because I couldn't get a shot on target that I didn't even dial for the last target. I just kind of held over, did a Hail Mary, pulled the trigger, ended up connecting and saving me from a goose egg. So that was pretty cool. But overall, this stage kind of sucked just because it was just very hard to shoot.
I know I was going to time out because I was like down.
Nice, Mike.
After he's done. Oh, you got 3, right? On this.
Stage 4, titled Rooftop, hard time of 105 seconds, 9-round count, 3 targets, all at about 430 yards. It was 1 position on the roof, 3 shots at each target before moving on to the next target. So I actually did okay on this stage. I ended up getting 5 impacts out of 9 total shots. And I probably could have gotten a lot more. I just kept hitting just high on the first 2 targets. And I think it's because the way the wind was coming in while I was shooting, it was going towards the mountains and creating an updraft. And I think it was just lifting my bullets just a little bit to where I was shooting just over the targets. I was actually aiming pretty much lower third, low edge of each plate to score impacts. But overall, I like these rooftop stages. I found I can get really stable on them by hooking my bipod onto the other side of the roof and then using the puff pillow to stabilize the rear end and just stay on target. Can watch my impacts. Yeah, I did really good on the stage. I was pretty happy.
Good run, Mike.
Thank you. I'm going home and buying one of these little puff pillows.
That's the best thing in the
Thing's
world,
fucking
dude.
awesome.
That fucking puff pillow. Ready?
All right, stage 5, titled "Don't Spin It." Par time of 105 seconds. 8-round count. It's one target. It's a spinner at 400 yards. So the way it works is there's a target on the bottom of the spinner and a target on top. And if you hit the lower target or the upper target, it'll kind of spin around. I'm sure if you've shot PRS, you've probably seen a target like this before. No gear restrictions on this stage, which is nice because I was able to use a tripod to get really stable. And so it was easy to stay on target and focus on the one rule of the stage was that you didn't want to shoot and cause the spinner to make a full revolution. If you did, no matter where you were on your round count, the stage would end right there. So you kind of had to time your shots so that when it made impact with the spinner, it wouldn't spin all the way around. Pretty cool stage. My first time ever shooting a stage like this. And you're shooting like a moving target that's rocking back and forth, and it just adds a different dimension to PRS. It's a really cool stage.
That's it.
Stage 6, Dad, can I borrow the car? Par time of 105 seconds, 10-round count, 5 different targets, 2 shots at each target, 3 different positions, shooting from the trunk of the car, from the top of the car, and from the hood of the car. Gear restrictions were 1 bipod and 1 bag, which is perfect for this stage because you could pretty much shoot it like bench rest barricade shooting. You were very stable. It was very easy to stay on target, spot your impacts. I didn't actually shoot this stage that well. Even though I got 5 out of 10 impacts, I had a very difficult time staying on target after every shot. I spent way too much time re-identifying targets before engaging them, and ended up timing out well before I shot the full round count. Overall though, this was a pretty easy stage that if I hadn't spent so much time re-identifying targets, I probably could have got 10 out of 10 impacts, honestly. But overall, it was a good stage. It was cool shooting from a car barricade, and I got some good points on the board.
Next position, blue IPSC.
IPSC. If you had the diamond, the IPSC's down. Good work.
Stage 7, sideway roof, par time of 105 seconds, 8-round count, 4 different targets, 2 shots each target, 2 targets per each side of the roof. Gear restrictions were 1 bag and a bipod. Not that much gear could be used on the stage, but it was enough. It was pretty easy to get stable on this rooftop. No complaints.
Really high. Like
So I actually forgot to record myself shooting this stage. So here's a quick clip of someone else shooting it, just so you can kind of see how the stage was.
My rifles. I'll bring my big baby, the 300 Win Mag. It's like twice the size of this. You want to shoot that?
Impact.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Stage 8, spool it. Par time of 105 seconds, 10-round
You
count.
deserve it, Dave.
Gear allowed, 1 bag and a bipod, and you were on top of the spindle. It pretty much made this stage like a bench rest barricade shoot. And you would think this would be a pretty easy stage, but it was one of the most infuriating stages of the day. The way the target was set up was that it was a 5, plate rack set up at about 400 yards, which you would think would be easy with a bench rest barricade style setup, but this was incredibly hard. One, the targets were incredibly small, probably half MOA at 400 yards. And then on top of that, there was a bunch of swirling wind. It was very hard to get on target. I think I got 1 or 2 impacts the entire stage, and I was just dancing around all the other plates for the rest of the stage. It was infuriating. A few people got goose eggs on this stage, and I think the most impacts on it was about 4 or 5. And this stage just goes to show that even though the setup of a stage might make it seem like it'll be a cakewalk, wind can change all the plans and make it very difficult to shoot. And then the actual target size themselves can make it difficult to shoot. Overall, a good stage for a learning experience. I wish I had shot better, but overall, good experience.
Impact. Dude, you were so fucking close every time except for like 2 of your first 2 shots. You were hitting right.
Right? I was holding right.
Yeah.
Stage 9, mover. Par time of 105 seconds. 10 round count. Any gear allowed. So this was a moving target. It was a half-sized IPSC set up at 200 yards, and it's moving from left to right at about 3 miles per hour. It was only my second time ever shooting a moving target in this way. So the overall concept of shooting a moving target is pretty easy. You just need to calculate and find out how much you need to lead the target and then shoot it. But in practice, it was a little more difficult. I went with the ambush method, where you find out your lead, which for me was 2 mils, and I left my gun steady, and I would let the target move left and right. I wouldn't move my rifle. And when a target would hit 2 mils either side of my center, I would pull the trigger. The issue I was having is that I just couldn't time it. Either I was shooting too late or just a little bit too early. And this being my second time ever shooting a moving target, it was still pretty hard. I managed to get a few hits, 4 or 5, so it wasn't all bad. Very good learning experience for shooting moving targets, and a good way to end the day.